す。お願いします。
お願いします。
Okay, okay. We'll just stop. Yep, a little bit of loosen body. Okay, got it. Front and back. Side to side. Rotating. And into the wave. Oh, that's fine. Oh, yeah. And let's take it into the swings. Let's do the arms. And working the hips. And opening the shoulders. And the other way. And just loosen the arms. Okay, working the wrists. Okay, now it's got a little bit of work for the wrists. Above. Change. And 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒂𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄𝒄 Change. And Nikyo. And Sankyo. Yeah. And change. Yeah, onto the fingers. Yeah, change. And then all the way over, stretch the whole body. Whoosh. And the other side. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm just working fists in. And then extending the fingers out. And shake the hands. Roll the arms. The legs. And into the whole body. Okie dokie. Good. Okay, take a bokken. Okie dokie. Okie dokie. Okay, we'll go straight in for 𝒂𝒏𝒕. Nice and slow. Big movements. Yeah, good. Okay, we'll look at it just again, just a little bit more fluid, except finding the back and cutting in this one. The really important thing with this is the hip work. So make sure the hips are basically the priority. So the hips send the sword out and send the sword in. So just play a little bit. It's always just about connection. So just play a little bit. The key points are the raise here and the sending in with the cut. So don't worry too much about finding the back or having to find the back. But the key thing is that the sword's being led by the hip. So just get this feeling for the connection. You can do very shallow movements with it, but just get the feeling all the time. As soon as the hands take over, the connection will be really impossible to find because the hands will take over and they'll go faster than the rest of the body. So just get the sense the center's gonna draw the sword up and draw the sword down. Draw the sword down. And also don't worry so much also about the focus. Just try and get this motion so that the hand and the hip are basically, first we get them kind of working together, and then what you want is really the priority is to go to the hip, and then the hand's going to follow that. Just give it a try, just working with different full motions or a little bit of kind of pulsing through. Yeah, that's we go. There we go. Good. Yeah, good. That's it. Yeah, great, good. Yeah, and then the main thing, just focus a little bit on the settling. So with the cut, what's really important now is if you think the hip's going to go first, is that the hip hits the ground first before the cut. So you really exaggerated, but there's a little bit of a break in the connection. So when we first learn them, obviously everything goes together. Everything goes together. What you want later is where that actually the center is going to take the priority. So the center is going to hit the ground. Center is going to hit the ground, and then the cut falls into this. So what you want is just, if you do something like this, then basically my center's trapped in the hand. So I basically ground center and hand together. But what you actually want is something where the center's going to hit and the hand's going to go this. So I want the ground first. So just think, basically finding the ground's the priority. This and then that. That. So the center's actually hitting the ground, hit the ground, hit the ground, and then that falls into it. So it's a kind of, it's a more elastic connection than the kind of basic in a way. So first, just really looking at hands and feet, everything coordinated, and then really getting the idea that the center coordinates everything elastically. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, good. Nice. Great. Good. And then just take it into Zengo. So look for a similar kind of elasticity through the structure. So again, the priority hips go first. So let the hips working from the ground really bring the sword up and draw it down. 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 So something releases from the ground and then passes right into the hip. Ground. 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 Boss. 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 Good. And then again, just look for something a little bit more elastic, because we're very used to doing it in a way like the raise, cut down, cut down. So there's a kind of stall at the top. Imagine the sword's kind of hitting like a trampoline, something bouncy. It's going to hit, it's going to bounce up, and then it's going to come down again. It's going to bounce up, come down. So nothing, it's not going to kind of stall. The sword will only stall if I'm making it stall, basically. So if I stop the hips and I stop the movement, the sword will come to a stop. But just think that what you're trying to do is really work with the sword. So let the sword fall through the motion as you go. You can also experiment just dropping the sword through, but just feel that it's one continuous motion. Raise, it drops down. Raise, drops down. But there's no point where the sword will stop, because the hips are in constant motion now. So the hip goes through. So feel that you're joining the sword. You can think of two ways. You can think about dragging the sword through the motion, or you can think about just joining it. Let the sword raise and fall. Rise, fall. Rise, fall. Just play with it a little bit. So it's something a little bit softer through the motion. There we go. Nice. That's it. Good. Yeah. So the key to this in terms of the footwork is the compression in the back foot. So it's really important how you rotate this back foot. So what becomes the back foot in the cuts as you go, feel the pressure is going to compress in, and then the pressure just constantly feeds into the ground from this foot. So this is why I don't really, in this case, want to start to kind of shift the body around, because it will start to kind of screw with that kind of compression. Not impossible to keep it, and you can do it later at different speeds, different angles, but really feel that as you go in, you screw into the ground, and then this pressure leads the whole cut. So the front foot of the cut you've just finished is going to be the back anchor for the next cut. So it's like when we do like Moroto or these kind of movements. You've got the pressure coming into the foot and then rolling through it, into the foot, rolling through it. But it will be like doing something like that, go, and then something like that. You want something kind of smooth through the whole body, smooth through the whole body. So the pressure is going to anchor from the back there. And then the hip can just basically follow that motion. The hip's going in and then pressing, in, pressing, in, pressing, in, pressing. It's really exaggerated, but you get the idea. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's okay. Nice. Nice.
Michael, is the weight shifting between the front and the back leg? In my case, I have the feeling that first,
Guess you got the cut.
Yeah, it first my weight goes into the back foot, so I can turn the front foot. Then it goes into the back foot, and then I can do the strike.
Yeah, I think in terms of the balance in the cut, it's a little bit of a sign that the cut's a little bit unstable. So think that what you want to do is basically hit the ground at this point here. So it's equal between the feet. So what I don't need to do is go like that to do that. You see that? If you've really got a balance in this point, think that you could just do that. So if I'm balanced, think if you're like this, if you're 50-50 waist balanced in the front, what I don't need to do to press into this foot is do this. So all I do is that. So that connection's direct. So that's telling me that I'm also balanced in the center of the body. So it might be a little bit like I'm a little bit loaded to the backside. And then what I need to do to release this foot is go into this foot to release it. So just look at it, but really feel that when you get into this kind of 50-50 position, that it's truly 50-50. So I'm right in the center of the body, and then because of that, you can just switch into it without having to lean into it. So just play with it. Also, it's also true with all these rotations, like Taina Henko, for example. I don't want to do that to go in. I want to do that to go in. So just explore the balance a little bit in terms of being 50-50, and just explore. You might not be totally 50-50. The key, don't think so much about 50-50, but think about the centers actually right between in the middle of the base of the body. So really feel it's in the base, and that if that's true, I'll be able to just go into it, go into it, go into it. Yeah. And that's also a choice. You can go to the other way. So you can go that way too, that way, or that way, that way, or that way. And that's because you're more balanced than not balanced.
Thank you very much.
Good. Just play with it. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like with number 2, it's the same idea. So you want to be really balanced in the body, and then feel that you don't need to shift forward to go back, that you can just shift into the back foot. So really this is the key moment in number 2 is actually this very first motion. So really feel that the center presses into the back heel and then raises the sword from here. And then the cut's just passing through the weight through this way. So if the setup's clear, you're right in the balance, balanced in the base. And then from here, this just rolls up. And then keeping the weight in the front foot, pressing through. Just focusing really on these compressions through a nice balanced body. You go back. As you go in, so there's something really nice and balanced about the movement. If I have all these extra movements, it's going to be if you get the extra movements, don't worry about them, but just notice that they're happening because they really feedback on where the body is in terms of the structure and the balance. So just listen to them. That. Goes through. Number 2. Here we go. Yeah, good. Yeah, just play a little bit. What can happen with this movement is I get taken away from the ground as I go up with the hands, because so basically the sword's kind of pulling up this way. So just play a little bit here and let the sword just drain into the ground. So really feel that the sword's now going to help you, because if the sword's pulling me out of the ground, it will disrupt that kind of compression pattern. So just to play with the footwork, or really the hip work, just get the sense that you're here and then you release everything into the ground and slide the body back. So the first thing is this feeling of that the hip's basically going to hit the back heel. So as you go, you're in this position. You want the hip to hit the back heel. Hip hits the back heel, and then I press the weight straight back into it. So just play with this idea, and just use the sword's basically going to drop through. So there's a kind of wheel back rather than a push and an adjustment. Just get the sense that you wheel the body through the ground. You want to hit the base and go back. Hit the base, go back. And go back. Just go straight through. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Nice. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Yeah, and I know this is sometimes quite common it's also in other styles as well, like Aikido, like this idea that I keep the foot as it is and I kind of turn around it, and then I adjust it. But really feel that you're just going to travel through the foot rather than around it. You're going to travel right through the foot. So that means I need to adjust the toes so that they really align with the motion. So think that my motion is back. My toes, in this case, need to align to the front, and then I need to press the hip back through it. This will give me a good structure through the motion that will allow me to keep the weight. Otherwise, I have to do something like that. So I do some, which is fine in terms of body mechanics, but it's something different. So really feel that what you're doing in this case is aligning to the front with the toes and then drawing through it. And you want to feel the weight pass straight through that leg rather than having to balance the body out and then do something like that. This is a kind of different way of movement. So feel that the hip's actually doing this. So it's a much more direct movement. This. So you align the toes, go. So it's a much more feeling like cutting rather than going around. So it's got a kind of slicing kind of motion through the ground. That's it. That's it. Yeah, there we go. Nice, nice, nice. Nice. Yeah, and as you introduce now back into the raise, feel that that movement is the priority. So it doesn't become now the arm. So I really feel that that's the priority. This raises from there. So just get a sense that the hips, that the arms catch into that movement. So the arms draw in and then catch that motion. So really feel that that motion back is what actually is going to raise the sword. So the downwards compression raises the sword. So down, compress. Down, compress. Down, compress. That's what's raising the sword from the lower back. And then the cut's just the cut. You just send it through. Tricky part's that very first motion. There. There. There we go. Okay, good. Oh yeah, just watch one thing, which is a little bit of an extra movement, is going to the top and then sinking the sword down into the body. So you also don't want to do something like that, kind of compress the body down. Well, you don't want compression in the upper body, so you don't want the body to enter these kind of positions. You want the body to be long and wide. So the one thing you can focus on is like width through the shoulders. So as you go, the shoulders are nice and wide, so this kind of feeling, and the neck's long, and the sword's just basically being a little bit compressed upwards, rather than feeling that it's sinking back down into the body. So it's not the feeling that the sword's kind of crushing onto the body, but actually that the sword's raised up off the top of the head. So there's a feeling of space, especially in this area. And then from here, you find the back cutting through. So think about opening up the space above the head with the sword. So it's like this kind of feeling. So it's really a kind of guarded position. And then coming into the cut. This goes in. That's it, nice. There we go, there we go, there we go. Great. Nice. And then we're going to 3. I'm just doing an adapted form. So if you can go to this position and reach up through the top. If you can't, you can go to a shorter BOKKEN, or you can just go to this position. You go back to here, yeah, and then just drop it down into the hip. So you're gonna have this 3 patterns. So you've got this reaching up, drawing the sword down to the back hip, really compressing through the structure, and then releasing it above the head. So really about opening the space up now to the top, opening through the spine. Nice deep breath in. Let it all sink, sink, sink to the back hip. And then express it forwards through the ground. It goes up, Down. Now. Whoosh. Yeah, this one especially, think about length through the body. So the hard posture in this case is this kind of 𝒂𝒂𝒏𝒃, the swords at the side of the body. So what you don't want to do is again be compressed in the upper body, something like this, or for the body to be twisted to the back, something like this. What you want is a feeling of from this central position. Feel that the body's basically spreading out on both sides. So even though the sword is going to load to the back, but what's not going to happen is that the body's not going to go with it. The body's basically going to split both ways. So imagine like a big balloon. It's basically going to open and expand on all sides. So that there's a kind of tension in the movement, but it's not a hard tension. It's just a relaxing. So it's a compressive tension. So think about if you've got a balloon and you press into it, it's going to expand on all sides. So it's got this kind of drawn tautness. The body's in a kind of loaded tension, but it's also a relaxed feeling. So it's like a kind of coiled spring here. But feel that it's open on all sides, or feel that it's expanded on all sides, right in the center of the base, and then release it. So imagine something's been pressured down, and then as you release that, it's going to go into this kind of direction. But it needs a kind of expansion in all directions. That's it. Yeah. And it's got this kind of there we go. Boom. Good. It's got this real explosive quality now. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Whoosh. Yeah. Whoosh. Yeah, and it just looked really specific on the angle about this. So you don't want to be too far out to the side. So I don't want to be somewhere in this kind of position. It's where the blade, you can basically still see the blade. So in this way, it's kind of hiding the blade moment. So you've got two ways to hide the blade. You can do like this, where I put the sword like this, so you can only see the pommel. Or I can actually hide the blade behind the body. So you can really do it. But what I don't want to do is something like that, where I'm in this kind of position, where you just see the blade. So it's in a way, it's a guarded position where I'm kind of hiding the blade. So it's this, and then really feel that it's going to draw. The sword basically disappears. And then as you go, when you make it, don't draw the sword back this way, but draw it back this way. So it comes right up through the center of the body. So it's here, not here, and then get the sense that as you go, it pulls to the center of the body. So that explosion, compression into the front foot, draws the sword up, and then you travel into it this way. Just look at those 2 points as you go back and as you go into the cut. You want to basically pull it into the center. There we go. Nice. Whoosh. Nice. Good. We're going to number 4, so we'll go through the whole set. Nice and slow. First, finding number 1, and then just taking a step each time. Really working Shomanuchi. And then in the feet, just settle every time. 1, 2, right down the line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Yeah, and it's very similar, really a similar feeling to number 2, this idea of traveling through the front foot rather than around it, and rather than like over the top of it. I think that you actually go through it and underneath it. So really focus on the undersole of the foot, so right underneath the foot. Really feel that that connection is nice and strong as you go through. The weight basically waves through it, through the foot. So again, don't focus too much on the sole because it can basically pull me either up or around the foot. So just get the sense every time you're basically hitting the ground with the foot and traveling through it. And then the foot, as you find the cut, is really going to be established into the ground so that I can just pass through it again. So think about passing through the feet as you go. Don't worry so much about the sword cut. Worry about how the hips basically transferring through the foot as you go. So it's like just like walking as you would normally walk, but it's done in a very stylized way, obviously. And I'm trying to maintain weight through an active movement through. So just feel that this kind of passing through the feet. And as you feel it just start to increase the motion with the arms. And again, the motion of the arms is really tied to that compression. So the sinking through the ground is the raise and the draw of the cut. Just try. That's it. And there we go. Great. Good, and then we're coming to number 5. So more circular now, really working, shifting down to yokomaruchi. So from the back foot, keep the same sense of wheeling through, but the hips are now going to really find a different position. So much more of an engaged hip position now. Opening the back hip, a little bit more, letting the sword really find this diagonal. Goes in. Just play with it. 3 or 4 cuts. 2, 1. Oh, he goes back. Move. Again, really working the line. Let the body follow a really clear line. Yeah, and think that the hip's going to guide the sword in. So look at this relationship, this very first motion. As you go, feel that the sword basically goes into that motion from the hip. So if you've got the sword like this, very loose in the body, what you want to feel is the hip basically sends the sword around. The hip sends the sword around. So this kind of motion. We do this all the time when you do the Jo work. So it's much more direct, but when you've got the Jo like this and you do this kind of motion and you send the sword around. So the hip work sends the sword in. It's the same here, but because the sword's basically stuck out, there's a tendency to do something a little bit more rigid, but let the arms be nice and flexible. The grip, and translate the hip work into the hand. Hip work into the hand, hip into the hand. And then it just goes with it. So just play with that. And again, it's that very first connection, because if that connection's not there, I'll force the connection. So that very, 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 very first motion in the connection, that will determine everything else in the curve. That. If that guy gets fired through from the hip, it will just follow. Let the hip go. There we go, nice. Good. Yeah, and also think this is really, it's not like an exaggerated movement, but it's a really big movement to basically allow the connection to really settle into the body. So you've got a very clear, big motion, but really, really allow that motion to complete. So you've got a big, big, big motion going around and through. What you don't want to do yet is kind of cut it down too much. So you don't want to do kind of too much with kind of shock, with cutting pieces out of it. So allow the whole motion to kind of ride through. And then it's got this kind of quality which is much more, it's much larger. So obviously when you make the movement in a kind of practical sense, it's going to be a bit sharper, but you want to much more, in this case, much more quality in terms of the whole movement going big in, big in. So it's got a really kind of full quality. Again, it's like basics. When we do these kind of basics, we do like rang, nice big moves, but obviously when you apply them, it's going to be very sharp, much sharper. Just look for that, something a little bit rounder. Yeah, there we go. Great, and then we're going to 6. So 6 and 7 start traditionally from Kamae here, and then going up into Jodan. So coming up to here. So we'll do them from here. You go in, and then number 6 is just from the same foot, thrusting in. Yokomen, ski to the back. Yokomen, ski. Yokomen, ski. And you're really exploring now this change in the hip work from the Yokomen hips into the ski. Really working a kind of 𝒕𝒉𝒂𝒕. So letting the hips go in. 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah, just play with this a little bit. It's tricky with the ski because if you think about it, we're really used to doing the ski from this kind of position and thrusting through. So again, you've got a really big movement. With the Ken, it's a much shorter movement, but again, it's got the same kind of relationship into the ground. So just try and emphasize what can get lost in the ski work is like the body goes and the sword basically just kind of pokes forward. So it ends up being just a kind of push with the arms, but really feel that what you're doing is skewering through. So it's got really this quality of pressing in through. So it's got a kind of sharpness to it. So the key is again from the back foot. So you're going to compress the body from the back and then in, from the back and then in. So it's really got a kind of compression down. The more I can press down, the more I can kind of reach out with the body. The less I can press down, the body will either get destabilized or I just cut the ski short and it becomes very kind of minimal. So just look at this kind of relationship. And both sides are the same. It's going to come from the back leg. Back. That. Back. So it's got a real kind of explosive into the ground and out. There you go. Boom. There we go, nice. Yeah, you can also try this with the arm. So it's got the same quality of these kind of movements where we make like this. So this kind of quality, you want the same thing. What I don't want to do is like something like that, but basically arm takes out. You want the feeling like the center fires it in. So it's got really a quality again from the back foot. This. And there's a kind of explosive expansion happening from the relationship between the hands to the center, the hands to the hip. This. Or when we do these kind of movements. This. Otherwise I do that. Something like this. So again, it's about using the center. Feel that you explode out from the center. It's got this kind of quality rather than it goes that way. So again, it's about going through your own power from the ground out. Hip, it goes there. Something there. It goes there. It goes there. It goes there. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, and the last one, number 7, the best one for the hip work. So you go now back, roll in, this, and then you got the same thing, explosion out and big hip movement. So just let this go through now. You've got Yoko Minuchi and then ski through. Big hip work. And it's really got a kind of sense of a spiral through, right the way through. Whoosh. Goes through. Whoosh. Right the way through. There we go. Nice. Yeah, it's now in terms of body work, you've got much more the sense now that you're basically coiling through. So when you do these movements, you've got to coil through the system and then press out. So you've got much more sense of coiling through and going forward. So it's got this still sense of expansion out, but it's got a coil in between it this way. So you're really asking the body, really something complex, but if you just let the hip create the motion, it will just go with it. So you've got this coil, and then an expansion during the coil. So it's really got this kind of very, very nice quality there. And if you want, play with going from the cut straight into the ski as well, because this will also can help with this kind of sense of expansion. So you hit and go straight into it. Yeah, go straight into it. Last. There we go. Nice. Very nice. Okay. I get last 30 seconds. Just play with any form you like. Just cutting. Just got nice clear curves, thrusting through. However you like. Curve. Just make each one stay really stable and really focusing on where the compression is going to come from. From the ground. Moving from the ground. Give the body really chance to find the ground and work with it. Just exploring the different hip work as you express the ground through the sword. Whoosh. Yeah. Whoosh. Great. So we'll stop there. So that's the 7. So back to basic. So, and always trying to keep this kind of flexibility in the training. So keeping the basic form, the Kihon, very clear, but also trying to introduce a little bit more flexibility into the forms from the beginning as well. So that's that. So, hi. Domo. Arigato.
Domo. Arigato. Gozaimasu.
Good. Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.